Alright, Trickers and Truckers, time for the penultimate episode review of the day with Darmok. The senior crew discussed their latest mission, to make contact with the Temerian race who have been transmitting signals towards Federation space for weeks. They mentioned that several prior contacts have occurred, but no meaningful interaction has ever been achieved because the way the Temerians communicate could not be understood. The Enterprise makes contact with a Temerian ship when over around the planet El Adril. Though the Universal Translator can translate their words, the Temerians communicate only through allegory, which baffles the Enterprise crew because they do not understand this yet, nor do they even know the stories to which the Temerians are referring. Likewise, the Temerians seem equally baffled by and unable to understand Picard's straightforward use of language. Frustrated by their failure at communication, the Temerian captain, Dathon, has himself and Captain Picard transported to the planet's surface. The Temerians then create a scattering field in the planetary atmosphere to prevent transport functions from being used on either captain. On the surface, Dathon utters the phrase Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra and tosses Picard a dagger. Picard is unsure if this is some formal challenge to a duel, so tosses it back at Dathon. As night falls, Picard fails to make a fire, and Captain Dathon shares his fire with the phrase Temba, his arms wide. The next morning, Dathon comes running, and then Picard realizes that there is also a hostile predator in the area that is stalking them both. Picard finally begins to understand the way that the other race communicates when he recites one of the allegories and sees the meaning underneath it as a direction on the tactic the other captain wants to use to fight the beast. The two attempt to fight the beast together, but because of the Enterprise's ultimately unsuccessful transporter attempt to rescue Picard mid-battle prevents him from participating at a crucial moment. Dathon is severely wounded. On the Enterprise, First Officer Riker and the crew struggle to understand the aliens' language, and Riker has Commander Data work with ship's counselor Troy in hopes of translating it. Lieutenant Worf, in the meantime, thinks that the captain is being tested as a warrior and advocates an aggressive stance, which Riker says he will take as a last option. Riker has Worf take a shuttlecraft to try to retrieve the captain, which fails when the aliens precisely disable the craft and force it to return to the Enterprise. Chief Engineer LaForge and Worf work on a way to disable the Temerian scattering field to beam up Picard, while Troy and Data work on deciphering the Temerian language. They deduce that it is entirely based on allegories from Temerian folklore. They learn that Darmok was a hunter and Tanagra is an island, but nothing else. Without the stories behind the allegories, the Temerian language remains indecipherable. While tending to Dathon's wounds, Picard keeps him talking and slowly deduces that Darmok and Jalad were two warriors who met on an island called Tanagra and had to cooperate to defeat a dangerous beast dwelling there, becoming friends in the process. Dathon tried to recreate this event between himself and Picard on El Adril, hoping that their shared adversity would forge a friendship where words had failed. Picard recounts for Dathon the Epic of Gilgamesh, a human story that parallels the allegory of Darmok and Jalad. Dathon seems to understand and appreciate the story, but eventually succumbs to his wounds. No! The Enterprise fires on the Temerian ship, disabling scattering field, and beams at Picard. He uses his newfound knowledge of Temerian allegories to communicate a basic message to the Temerians and end the battle. When Picard returns Dathon's personal journal to them, the Temerians record and announce the story as Picard and Dathon at El Adril, and adds a new phrase to their language. Picard warns Dathon, who sacrificed his life to open relations between their two cultures. Picard later reads the Homeric hymns in his ready room, explaining to Riker that more familiarity with their own mythology may help them relate to the Temerians. Picard notes to Riker that Dathon sacrificed his life in hopes of communication and wonders if he would have been willing to do the same. After Riker leaves the ready room, Picard picks up the knife and looks out of the ready room window into space, while he repeats the seemingly ritualistic gestures that he saw Dathon engage in. Picard thus plays silent tribute to his fallen comrade. Aww. So anyway, let's look at some production notes about the story. This episode had the longest gestation period of any episode of TNG during Michael Pillar's tenure, taking around 2 years to make it to the screen. Rick Berman hated the premise, but Pillar thought it was interesting and was determined to make it work. Pillar gave it to Joe Manowski, who completed the script and focused the story on the idea of two leaders attempting to communicate, as well as using the Epic of Gilgamesh as a plot device. Primary filming for Darmok occurred on July 18th through the 26th, 1991, Paramount Stages 8, 9, and 16, as well as location at Bronson Canyon. An additional day was August 8th for the blue screen unit to film the creature scenes with someone Rex Pearson on Paramount Stage 9. Second unit for this episode filmed on August 26th on Paramount Stages 9 and 16. When production for the following episode, Ensign Row, returned to location at Bronson Canyon on August 5th, another sequence was filmed for Darmok involving Rex Pearson and photo doubles Ron Large and Lanier Edwards. Photo double Dana Vidito filmed additional second unit shots on August 28th on Paramount Stage 9. The call sheet, dated on July 18th, featured an uncast actress in the role of Lieutenant Larson. In the final episode, this role became Robin Leffler, who was played by Ashley Judd. Oh, that's kind of interesting. So overall, I think it's a pretty good episode, and the focus on communication I thought was kind of nice. So yeah. So overall, I give Darmok 5 warp cores out of 5. Well, join me soon for the final episode review of the day with Ensign Row. So, until then, live long and prosper, everybody.